Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and this is the World War III report and news. And I got my co-host and the host. I'm going to give him a lot of time to talk today. Um, William, and he's going to pretty much start off our program with the leftover news from Monday, and then we're going to get into a lot of um, China, Ukraine, Israel, Iran. It just seems like everyone's building up at the same time to start a war. They're itching. I don't know if it's them itching or if it's those around them itching. So, all right, William, go ahead, and I'm going to turn this over to you.
So, you are? Uh-oh. Here we go. I got some stuff. So, in Damascus, Syria, they're blaming Israel over some strikes in Aleppo, near the Aleppo airport. And the Israeli Defense Forces patrolled the West Bank and other territories where they've been apprehending terrorists. It's upsetting Hamas. Israel says that it will continue the targeted strikes against Hamas also, and its Iranian proxies. And as well, Israel continues its preparations for all-out warfare with Iran. Okay. I was just making sure I didn't have a report on the other page. So France's ambassador, according to France 24, intends to defy Niger, or Niger, I guess they call it.
Nigeria, yeah.
Niger gave the ambassador to France a 48-hour deadline yesterday, or Monday, to leave Niger or else. And they cut off the water and the electricity to the embassy. And France doesn't want to accept Niger's coup or the choice of the people in Niger, so they're fighting against it. But the Nigerian people don't want colonization, so both of those things are going on at the same time. So according to the Niger junta president, says, I'm holding back ECOWAS, that's the Economic Council of, I think, Western Africa, as the junta cuts the power and water to the French embassy. And according to a YouTube site, TCM, Niger is at the brink of war in Africa between, and this is the important part, a war between Niger, France, Russia, and Wagner simultaneously. And that's an important part.
Now, the Wagner Group went over there, a whole bunch of them, and they said they were they were claiming they were moving ahead with the war that they wanted to do. Is that part of that?
They're actually fighting against the Christians as well as the Islamics, which is surprising to me because they went over there to fight against Boko Haram, and they've been fighting the Christians as well. Wagner has. For control of major cities. So according to, also this is new. Well, it's not really new, but it's important. According to Whitney Webb on Redacted, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the major problem in trafficking. He was just the very tip of a very large iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody should watch her report on Redacted, because it's a long report and there's just so much information. I can't do it justice here. But if the sound of freedom upsets you, this is probably going to upset you more. It's pretty vile. So I'll just leave it at that. But Whitney Webb has been a tireless investigator. She's an investigative reporter like, can't remember the Winters gal on the War Room. But Whitney Webb is just
what was her name?
fantastic. So everybody really should listen to that. Now, according to Lieutenant Colonel McGregor, retired Lieutenant Colonel McGregor. Now, remember, he was the battle commander that executed the major battle in Desert Storm called 73 Easting. He says Ukraine has been turned into a cemetery, and there's no one left to fight except for children and old people. He says Ukraine has as many as 50,000 in reserve after the general mobilization that's already taken place. But he says that Russia still has 300,000 in reserve and has only gone into a partial mobilization. So Russia hasn't gone to a full war mobilization. They've gone to an arms manufacturing mobilization, and they've gone to a partial mobilization for the war with Ukraine. And so he said that's terrible, and I'll just say that this is really bad news for Vicki Newland. I'm not even going to call her by her first name regular because I don't like her. This thing is about to be over soon, in my opinion.
Now, isn't that kind of, it kind of reiterates what the Hungary president had said with Tucker Carlson in his interview. Now, eventually he wants to go see Putin, Tucker does. But he was saying the same thing, that there's nobody left. They're going to have to go pull people off the streets.
I'd like to see Victor. What's Victor's last name in Hungary? Do you remember his name?
No.
The president's name?
No, and I don't have it written down.
I hope he goes over to.
Let me see.
I'd like to see the Hungarian president go over to Russia and try to sort out a peace treaty of some sort with Ukraine. I think he could do it. I think he could do it with Ukraine and go over and see Putin in Russia. I think he has Victor. Oh, I just had his name on the top of my tongue. Orland. Is it Orland? Anyway, I would really like to see if he could get some sort of a peace accord going between the two. And I have a report here from Colombia. There's been over 100 influencers from the internet and reporters killed. So there's a serious First Amendment, U.S. First Amendment issue going on in Colombia. And of course, we always push for human rights. So I hope the administration will, if they don't have a powerful ambassador there, get one there soon. Because these, it's not easy to come up with good reporters. This is something that you don't like. You don't issue out some sort of a fatwa or something and say, out of this group, 100 people are going to step forward and become reporters. These reporters naturally grow out of society, and you can't just demand them when you need them.
Mm-hmm.
So, First Amendment human rights really needs to be pushed around the world. The United States has done that historically for that very reason, because countries will actually go, as far as news go, will go black. The intelligence agencies will have information, but the intelligence agencies can't leak out continuous information about these other countries.
Yeah.
And so reporting in the civilian press drops dead, and it's sad, because usually there's a reversal of government about the same time they start killing reporters, and nuns and priests. Then governments change over, and then there's a dearth or a black hole as far as information for quite a while, and that's sad. And the same thing's happening, according to Eva Bartlett, in Ukraine, where journalists are being imprisoned, tortured, and killed. So
yeah.
we're not seeing the
well, there was 3 of them that I had up in Syria that were 2 disappeared and 1 was killed. But the 2 that disappeared, even Eva Bartlett talks about it, to where we don't even know what happened to them.
Yeah, killing them is terrible. Nobody wants to see anybody killed, but torture can be worse than death.
Yeah.
I feel bad for people who get tortured. When they called me up to go to Desert Storm, they called me up twice to go without my unit, and because I was part of DOD and I could take care of battle damage. Anyway, they wanted me to go, and I said, sure, I'll go as long as I can carry a sidearm. And they said, why do you want to carry a sidearm? And I said, after what this government's done to me, I can't imagine what Saddam's government would do to me. I'd rather have a sidearm. And they said, okay.
Really?
So anyway, we're having issues in the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. The United States Amphibious Ready Group has been trailed by both Iranian sea craft, or boats they call them. Some are larger, they're almost ships, frigate size, and as well as drones. And here's the thing about the Navy. Right now we have a brand new Naval Chief of Operations. We've never had a female Chief of Naval Operations in history. And if she's like Hillary, she may want to prove herself. And if I was Iran, I'd step back a couple steps, because those amphibious assault groups, amphibious carrier, they're all full of Marines.
Yeah.
And the Marines will get the job done, whether it's on the beach or at sea. The Marines are designed for capturing other ships. I don't know if people realize that. Anyhow, and according to Crux, there's been a tanker with Iranian crude oil offloading in the United States after a week of standoffs with Iran. So I thought we had an embargo with Iran. What is Iranian oil doing being offloaded in the United States? I mean, we need the crude, obviously, but that's a problem. I don't even know what to think about that, Ellie. To have Iranian crude, I can imagine having Saudi Arabian crude. I could imagine a lot crude from Indonesia. I can't imagine it from Iran, because we've had an embargo ever since.
Something's up there.
Yeah, that's some sort of an illness that's been allowed by the United States. All right. Now, according to the Chinese Communist Party, China urges the United States to stop jeopardizing and disturbing peace and stability in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
Because they want to maintain peace, according to its official spokesman. Now, I'd like to talk about this a little bit. This is about communism. When communists talk about peace, they're talking about when all things are under control of the Communist Party. Stability is when they have everything under control of the Communist Party. Success is when all things are under control of the Communist Party, right? Territorial integrity is when all things are under, and all the people are under control of the communist government. It's not the same as when we think about it. We think about peace and liberty and success and our territorial integrity completely different than the Communist Party does. You can't move around inside China without a passport type of thing. You can't go home without one. It's when you hear communists talking about peace, keep in mind they're talking about total control by their governmental organizations only. It doesn't have to do with anybody else in any other governmental organization.
Yeah.
And next, where do you think the most polluted city air in the world is, Ellie? What do you think?
LA.
So it turns out to be Jakarta, Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
There's 148 million people in Indonesia, and it's Jakarta. So,
I was close.
Most of the pollution in the world is within a 2,000-mile radius of the South China Sea. They're building more coal power plants. At the same time, we're cutting ours. Well, we can't cut ours enough. You can't cut enough carbon in the United States enough to offset what's going on in that 2,000-mile region around the South China Sea. So I don't know how scientists believe that they can actually gain any control over the climate on the planet.
Well,
if they
we discussed
people.
Germany is going to take down the wind farms and replace it with coal. We discussed that on the phone. People in 20 other countries are going to do this.
So I think this climate thing is a bunch of crap, because according to Iwan out of India, that's one of their big news sources out of India, they're worried that the El Nino by 2026 could doom the rare glaciers on the equator in Indonesia. What? There's glaciers on the equator, that's the hottest part of the earth, and they're still there? And we've had climate problems for how long?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work. That model is right in the toilet. Those glaciers should be long gone.
Yeah.
And they're talking maybe by 2026. That tells me climate is just being fooled with over here in the Western nations. That's weather modification going on there. I'm just going to say it straight up. If Indonesia, with having that level of particulates in the air and still having those glaciers down at that, almost zero latitude, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, this really makes me sick. So, in case y'all missed it, there was a mugshot of former President Trump taken at a jail in county jail in Georgia, and he has been, arrested, had his mugshot taken, and now they're awaiting trial. And he's been given bond, right? So how many were there? Like 19 individuals that were arrested, and the prosecutor's trying to push a RICO suit. Anyhow, everybody got bond except for the one person who had black skin.
Yes.
A former Marine. And they didn't give him bond. And he voluntarily, on his own dime, flew from Colorado to Georgia to be arrested. Now, does that sound like somebody's going to be a flight risk?
Yeah.
I don't think so. He could have demanded on the arrest that he be extradited from Colorado and made that go for a long time. But he didn't. And he paid on his own dime that airfare, right, to go to Georgia. Airfare's not cheap when you have to buy it on short notice, right? So I'm livid with Miss Fanny, I guess is what she's called.
Yep, Fannie Willis.
Fannie Willis, and the judge that wouldn't give him wouldn't give him bond. Now he's going to have another hearing soon, and he didn't have an attorney before because he thought he'd be able to get bond on his own. I mean, it's not like you have to
and that's one of the hardest jails.
You don't have to
meanest,
request
toughest,
a lot of the court to get bond. All you have to do is have a bail bondsman, right?
Yeah.
And because he didn't go into court with an attorney, and I believe because of his skin color, he just doesn't want to throw away money unnecessarily on this frivolous court action. And I don't blame him. I would have done the same thing. And to do that to a former Marine, I think is reprehensible, especially if he has no previous convictions, and they don't. So he may be out on bond by now, but that's sickening.
And it's one of the worst jails in the United States, and it's hostile and crimes. And I think I did a report on a couple days ago where saying that there was 3 people that were killed in that jail in less than a month.
Well, and here's the other thing. Are they just coming down on him because the prosecutor is colored and because the judge is colored? They don't want to seem like they're letting this guy off with an easy deal. If that's the case, that's sick too, because he should be seen as just any other citizen. When you go into court, it doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter your sex, it doesn't matter your religion, right? It just matters you're a citizen of the United States. That's all that should matter, and that you've committed a crime.
Yep.
But I'm disturbed in so many ways. I don't even know where to go with it. And if anybody should recognize that would be a bad idea to not give this guy bond because of his color, it would be a couple colored people, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they've completely lost their minds. I think they're running a cult. I don't think it has anything to do with a political party at this point. Anyhow, in Taiwan, they're having a run for their new presidency, as well as Japan. Japan is doing the same thing right now. And you remember Foxconn? That was they built motherboards for computers, and then Apple Computer in China approached them to build the Apple telephones, the iPhones, right? And also the Apple brand of computers, the Macintosh. Anyway, the founder of Foxconn is in Taiwan right now, and I don't know if he was Taiwanese when he built that Foxconn empire in China, is running for the post of president in Indonesia. If you remember, Foxconn is the company that had put out nets around the country, around the perimeter of their building, because they had so many employees committing suicide, jumping off the walls of their building because they were working them so hard. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine the Indonesians allowing this guy to be president. And if Indonesia is listening right now, don't let this guy in the presidency, please. Anyhow, it turns out that the Democrats are censoring not only the Republicans, like Larry Elders. Oh, I'm sorry, the Democrats are censoring RFK Jr., and it turns out Republicans are censoring Larry Elders. Now, I'm wondering, is this just a bi-coastal thing, right? Because Elders is in California and RFK Jr. is in Massachusetts, out there by Hyannisport. So, is this just a bi-coastal thing, or is this a national thing with regards to Democrats and Republicans? I hope it's at the very least bi-coastal, where you have super dense populations of people. I don't know if the rest of the world realize in the United States, most of the people are either on the East Coast or the West Coast. And the center of the country has a far less population, except for around the Great Lakes and down by Mississippi, by the Mississippi River. So those are the big population spots. But wherever there's coast, there's a lot more population in the United States, and where there's just rivers and, well, the Mississippi and Ohio have a lot of population near them. But when you get away from the big rivers, populations drop off precipitously. So, yeah, I hope none of that's coming from the center of the country.
Yeah.
Republicans should not be censoring anybody, especially Larry Elders.
Yeah. Or even RFK they shouldn't be doing RFK either on the Democrat side. Why aren't they allowing anybody to go against the Bidens or the other Democrats?
RFK hasn't held, I don't think, any major office, and Larry Elders almost won the governorship in California. Why aren't they letting these guys are very articulate, they're very intelligent, they should be allowing these people equal access and an equal spot on the stage when they do these debates. This is an electoral sickness, I think, that's going on. I think this is the globalists of both parties stepping up to the plate and pushing back on anybody that can push back against the globalists.
Yeah.
All right. I have some news flashes from CBS News. I don't know if you want those, Ellie.
That's fine.
So, U.S. Commerce Secretary stressed the importance of open dialogue with our enemy, China, in hearings. And I'm thinking perhaps her and the drunk third grade teacher ought to get together and try to set up, U.S. policy with respect to commerce in China. They might be able to do a better job. Seriously, our enemy, and that she's most worried about dialogue with China? Please. Okay. Ukraine claims a major logistical victory and broke through the defenses near a land bridge. Yeah, they broke into a really small town.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, a quarter of a kilometer wide. that's not exactly punching through Russian defenses.
Yeah.
Russia
Well,
has
the big special
does
report, William,
yeah,
today
Russia does
was.
have a part of their war doctrine is to fall back to their defenses, so that they'll have people that are out doing reconnaissance in front of their lines, right? So if you engage those reconnaissance folks and they fall back, they're supposed to fall back. They're not supposed to engage you. They're just supposed to be out there gathering information. Then they fall back to their lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they engage. That's not a major logistical victory. And furthermore, how is Ukraine having logistical victories only now? They've been at war for 15 months, 16 months, more than that, I guess, 18 months. Anyway, how do they not have proper logistics at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know what, the newest one today was, I guess early this morning, our time, uh, because Ukraine had fired missiles into Moscow. Putin hit back fierce with.
Well, the other thing is, you're just poking a bear when you send a missile, not knowing where it's going to go into Moscow.
Yeah.
If you don't hit a military base or something important, that's stupid.
He is putting out the most missiles and that he has ever done to Ukraine just overnight. And Ukraine is saying they've been able to down a few, but basically they're not sure if this is going to be a long-standing fire upon by Russia, because as Russia is firing those missiles, they're loading their border up with soldiers. So,
of course, it's going to be a long-term engagement.
Yeah.
Of course it is, because.
Well, what I mean by that, William, is they're only going to
missiles,
increase.
Russia's now building their missiles faster, I believe, than they're degrading their stockpiles. They can continue this indefinitely until those manufacturing facilities are taken out.
Well, what I'm thinking, William, is they're hitting hard and with a lot, and I think they just want to put the war to an end. It's
Russian doctrine is always to leave anything that they have to attack as a smoking black hole. They don't want to push their forces into any area that hasn't been already destroyed, and hopefully the combatants destroyed along with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
They want to push whoever's in that area back, and the only way to push people back and out of the city is to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to more happy news, I suppose. Prigozhin, the Wagner Russian leader, they say they found his DNA at the crash site. And CBS says that that's going to affect the Wagner fighting people in Africa. And I say there's not going to be any change whatsoever. I think CBS got that one wrong.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that's interesting. They're using drones now, right, to hunt for the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
So they're putting up drones, I guess, all the time. So in case Nessie pops through the surface, I guess, they're going to find Loch Ness. I just have this question. Why don't you use your drones to find squatches? There's a lot more of them. The opportunity is more likely to be found.
They don't, though. The pictures
That's
that come
my
out with
opinion.
Bigfoot are so blurry, you can't tell if what it is. It could be a guy in a gorilla suit, or it could be just a bear. Uh, that no
Yeah.
one can ever get clear pictures of these Bigfoots.
Well,
Every,
here from Sled Dog and Squatch Den here in Washington, we're a little upset that you went after Nessie first. You could at least gone after Ogo Pogo over here. You know what I'm saying?
well,
Over
you
here
know
in
what
Lakewood
else is
country.
going on in your state? And this is kind of off topic a little bit, is the American Indians group petition to restore the Redskin name.
There's two things actually going on, and part has to do with our Native Americans too that work here, because I live near a reservation. They've destroyed another food plant here in Washington, and also one on the Oregon border. They've both been destroyed by fire. This is a terrorist operation, or these companies are looking at the fact that with inflation, they have to get out of the business and are burning them down for insurance money. I don't know which, but
It sure is weird, though,
so
huh?
we've
All these
lost
fires.
we've lost the potato plant in Twin Falls, Idaho. We've lost two plants here on the Oregon border along the Columbia River. We've lost the one up here in central Washington. This isn't just happening because there's accidents. You can't have, what is it, 50 or 100 food processing plants in the United States have been destroyed. And we have photographs the other day of ISIS terrorists getting past our border patrol. So we know we have ISIS terrorists in the United States, and we're losing food processing plants at an unusual basis, or an unusual number of fires. So I'm a little bit concerned about that.
This, I typed it into.
I think Homeland Security has fallen right on their face.
I typed it out to Mary. You've kept track of me and her both have been keeping track of these plants destroyed. It's just one after another, and train derailments, and then the fires, and it just seems too odd, out of the ordinary and suspicious with all the plants that are on fire.
Our food processing plant here has been running for 30 years. They've never had a fire that destroyed it.
Yeah.
Then boom. And the fires don't start down in the equipment area. They're starting on the roof. So anyway, we had a sad situation happen in Broward County, Florida. The fire and rescue there for Broward County, they flew an EC-135 Eurocopter. Anyway, just after takeoff, they had a fire out by the tail boom, probably the aft transmission, because you have a transmission between the top rotor and the tail rotor. And if that aft transmission, which is right at this near the end of the tail boom by the center of the aircraft, overheats and catches fire, then the strength of the tail boom fails. The tail boom falls away, and they can't even auto rotate to save themselves. It's the most dangerous place in a helicopter for a fire or an explosion or getting shot at. Will completely disable a helicopter. It'll kill the pilots. Anyway, they have one death, and I don't know if they have two others that are being reported as having survived, but we don't know what their physical condition is right now. They've been sent to the hospital, I understand. So that's a bad deal. Now in Houston, we had oh, I could forget the name of the type of aircraft. Anyway, it's a European-built commercial aircraft, aero something bus. Anyway, it landed so hard that the skin on the top of the aircraft between the wing section and the pilot section, okay, on the top of the aircraft crumpled. So they have what they call pilot-induced oscillation. When you're landing an aircraft, you're at a point where the aircraft is just about to stall when you land on the ground. You want to land at the slowest speed possible because you have to burn off that energy before you get to the end of the runway to stop the airplane.
Yeah.
Well, if you get a gust of air suddenly, just as you're about to touch down, it causes the airplane to hop up off the ground again after you've already put the rear landing gear. And if you try to correct that, it takes a second for controls to take effect on these big airplanes, and you get what's called an oscillation, and it causes the front landing gear to smack the ground a couple of times. And they believe that's what happened, and it destroyed, and it's an Airbus, I think it was 220, something like that, or 260. So, yeah, that was a bad deal in Houston. So that's a total write-off of an aircraft, with the exception of, the landing gear and the engines, the avionics. The fuselage of that aircraft's now trash. They can't fix that. So that was a bad deal for United that happened in Houston. All right, that's what I had, Elly, for news.
Well, the new thing with Ukraine is they're talking that NATO is basically going to eventually accept Ukraine in. Something that they've been discussing and having meetings on. And they said it could happen by the end of the year. And,
Hungary would have to allow that vote, and so would Turkey. I can't see either Turkey or Hungary allowing them into the union of NATO.
And the other thing was Russia. We mentioned earlier that they're making some of the biggest strike on Ukraine this morning than they ever have during this whole war, even going all the way back into 2015. But what they have also said is Poland has been moving troops around, and Putin basically told Poland, if you think you're going to go after Belarus, you're going to see what you're looking at as of today in Ukraine, where it'll be very aggressive. And
so Putin has put intermediate nuclear strike missiles in Belarus. He's nuclearly armed Belarus. And Wagner is operating near the border, and so Poland is terrified that there's going to be an incursion and a widening of the war. And I think they should be terrified.
Yeah.
I think they should be very terrified.
Yeah, because this is Putin. Putin,
Wagner,
did you see that commercial that Putin put out that said it's time that you either surrender or you're just going to be gone? I don't know if you've seen that. Putin put out this commercial that is telling the soldiers, now is the time that you either surrender or else. And
so that was back all the way into June. They started that, Elly. And he may be right. We don't know, but it's likely it's propaganda. He hasn't moved in the 4 months since he started that, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
I do know that Poland is terrified that Wagner will jump the border and they'll have to engage them. And if that happens, what is Russia going to believe, that Wagner had to defend Belarus from Poland? See what I'm saying? There'll be a bad batch of bad information from both sides. And what is the leader of Belarus going to do? Because now you've got Belarus and Putin involved. So that's why they're packing U.S. Troops all over Poland right now, and a lot of armor to make sure that doesn't happen. Also, I can't imagine Latvia and Estonia and Finland signing to have Ukraine into the Union, because they're really close to the Russian border, and they're a lot closer to Moscow than and St. Petersburg than Ukraine is. I don't see the UN allowing, because it only takes one member to veto it. That's my thing on that. I wish this war in Ukraine would stop. I don't.
Well, you heard the guy from Hungary. He's saying Putin is ready to go.
Yeah, and this is just a needless loss of life at this point.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is they call it a proxy war. I call it a frivolous war, because it only started over just a border of just a few neighborhoods on both sides. It was very little.
Yeah.
Now it's
neighborhood civil war dispute.
Yeah.
And
turf war. There you go. We call it turf war here.
Everybody's made their political statements now on the war, and war is the ultimate
the only thing left.
Engaging in politics. So what is being gained at this point? There's no rhetorical gains. There's no territorial gains. Nothing's happening except the loss of life. This is stupid.
Yeah, and a lot of civilians, more than, and not only that, but not very many Ukrainians left to be able to fight, and that's why I think that's why it was mentioned in that interview of if NATO brings in U.S. or anybody else and puts boots on the ground, that's war. That's just a signal of war, and that's what we're talking about.
Remember how I said that incrementalism caused widening of war?
Yep.
This is exactly how it happens. If the peaceniks don't get this thing right and get this thing shut down now, this thing's going to widen. It's going to become a forest fire they can't put out.
Yeah. So
it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. So if we kind of move up to Syria, because that was the other big report I got, because not only is northern Syria engaged, and that's close to Damascus, but then the southern border is at the same thing. But what we're finding out through independent journalism, there was 3 Republican congressmen that went over there to have a talk with in Syria. And one of them was French Hill. And I went, what? That's our guy. Wait a minute. So I called French Hill's office and I said, what was he doing over there? And they asked me, where did I get that info? Because it's never been released. And I said, well,
released. Don't they know when a U.S. official goes anywhere, there's people that watch airports and airplanes that say the United States of America on the side? Don't pay attention.
It was French Hill, Bill Klein, and Scott Fitzgerald. And the congressmen who entered Syria, get this, illegally through Turkish territory. They were sneaking over there. And so
they went through Kurdish land from Turkey to enter, and then go all the way down through Syria to Damascus to talk to the leader there.
Yeah. And then when I called, they wanted to know where I got my information from. That has never been released. And I had that big Cheshire cat smile, I'm like, oh, I know something, And then I had it backed up by the journalist. But I can't be happy because what they're finding out is the United States is now um, to go after and take Assad down. They have now started to pay the Taliban and ISIS to go after them, and they're helping them fight them.
Taliban, ISIS, and Hezbollah are all tied together now with Iran. We should not be engaging with any of those groups.
We've been paying
Absolutely
them, though.
not.
We've been,
because if we do, it will destroy Lebanon and Damascus.
well, see, that's what they're hoping for, because they want to take Assad out. And this was alarming to me, that we would actually be supporting, not only supporting, but paying for ISIS and Taliban. They're terrorists. Those are our enemies.
We shouldn't be supporting anything that Iran does at all, anywhere, anytime, for any reason.
And Israel basically bombed, I know you've said this, Aleppo, the international airport, which is predominantly a civilian airport. So they're doing the same thing they're doing in Ukraine, the same thing they did uh, in other areas where, they're going after the airport, they're going after um, civilian where civilians are.
They go after hospitals, they go after schools, they go after universities, but that's where despicable people will pile up their munitions. Hezbollah has a terrible record of keeping its munitions under schools, under hospitals, under, in hangars near the airport, instead of moving those out at least into warehouses that are away from population areas and infrastructure. If you were an insurgent and you had any brain at all and you expected to control that country afterwards, I would want to keep all that infrastructure.
Yeah.
I would want to be able to use that infrastructure. And if you take down a nation and destroy the infrastructure at the same time, you're not the brightest guy on the block. Just saying.
Yeah. And so between the two, they are hoping to take Assad down. But now now what's on the northern part is for Damascus. Now the southern part, what they're hoping for is to squish Syria, to squeeze Assange out. But not only that, but then this army
wipe out Lebanon.
Well, Lebanon too. But now the thing is they're going to go all the way down into Gaza.
Right.
And what they're hoping to do is to squeeze on three sides. And this will, according to Iran, this will force Israel into finally going to war.
Well, they either want to destroy Israel near Syria without a war in Iran proper.
Right.
Or instigate a war with Iran to get it over with Israel.
Uh-huh.
And I think Iran is really miscalculating this thing, because Israel's willing to take the beating to take out Tehran. Jerusalem, they're not going to destroy Jerusalem, the second holiest site in Muslim world.
Yeah.
So how does Tehran actually win this thing?
Yeah. Well, see, the whole thing is now the UN is even kind of putting their foot in the door, saying that they were only claiming peaceful protests in the southern part. And now the UN is now realizing this was never about a peaceful protest. This was war. There was missiles flying back and forth, and Israel, of course, warned it off.
Warfare.
And it's the only thing they're showing to the media and those that want to keep this war sizzling, is the only thing they were showing the UN would be rocks being thrown. And they said, how is that a war? Well, Then Israel jumped in and showed, oh, well, now wait a minute, this is what's really going on. The same with Assad, because he doesn't want to be squeezed out. And at the same time, then Saudi is basically inviting Assad into the Arab, what is it called? The Arab group.
Hamas?
No, 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 no. The big Arab group that all the Arabs are a part of.
Oh, the Sunnis and the Shia?
No, kind of like NATO and then the BRIC and all that, and then they have the Arab group. And Assad has always been ousted on that, but now Saudi is now signing an agreement that they're going to be invited in. So really, Saudi has stepped in to say, wait a minute now, you don't need to do this to Syria to start a war that's on my doorstep. Because now Saudi's saying this is going to start a war.
Here's the thing. The last time there was a war with Israel, right, a big war, you had Syria, you had Lebanon, you had Jordan, and you had Egypt all at the same time attack Israel. With conventional armies. They lost. Don't do this stuff with Israel. It's a fool's game.
Yeah, but it almost looks like, when you look at it, because Turkey is warning those that, like the United States for siding and trying to get ISIS and Taliban is fighting, starting this war. And then, of course, Saudi has stepped in, and now Israel has claimed, I think as of yesterday, that now they don't feel like they're alone in the world. That they actually, but how far? Here's my question to you: how far can Israel trust Turkey and Saudi?
They can trust Saudi and Turkey to act in Saudi and Turkey's best interest.
Yeah.
You can trust the country to act in their own self-interest. And if those countries have a self-interest, they don't want to have refugees flowing over their border, which is exactly what would happen. They would have to take care of the refugees out of Syria and out of Lebanon. And so with Jordan would have to take those help with the refugee problem. And even probably Egypt as well.
Yeah.
In Gaza. So you can trust other nations to act in their best interest if you know what their interests are. You can't expect them to act in your best interest as a country.
Yeah.
But
it does sound like some of these countries are going to come to the defense. William, it does sound like some of the countries are seeing what's going on. And they don't want a war spewing over into their own country. And I think they see how unfair this is.
Well, like Saudi and Israel are like oil and water, right?
Yeah.
They do not. Well, one's got one of the holiest sites in Mecca, and the other's got the holiest site in Jerusalem. So, and one is surrounded by Jews, and the other's, of course, Islam, and that's not a problem in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
But having non-Islamic people around the Temple Mount is infuriating to people in Islamic faith. It's not a joke, right?
Well, I think the Islamics think it is, because it's almost like how you say they're poking the bear to try to get a rise out of them.
But it all boils back to self-interest as well, remember? Even these tribes and these religions act in their own self-interest. But there was over the Persian Gulf, there was an emergency with an Israeli domestic aircraft and had to land in Saudi Arabia because they were having that much trouble. And Saudi Arabia had no problem getting the passengers back to Israel, and there was no issues there. Now, in the past, that they would have taken those people as hostage, but they didn't. So there is some good blood between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I don't believe Israel has ever attacked Saudi Arabia. Now, on the other hand, Saudi Arabia has accepted help from China to build their own civilian nuclear program. And we know how Israel deals with civilian nuclear programs. So they may be trying to get a civilian nuclear program like Iraq had and like Syria had without getting their program struck by Israel.
Yeah.
So both of those things may be going on. But I'm a little disturbed that Saudi Arabia has decided to go down the nuclear road because it can only lead to warfare in the end.
Yeah. And now, I guess last, this might be like a two-part kind of discussion because China, we like you have said on Monday, their economy is falling apart. Well, now the propaganda that's come out today, but it seems to, William, I went and looked up a few places really quick on this. They call it the 7/24 or the in less than 3 weeks. And what it is Jinping said it first. He said that, the country could be falling, but it could be that war is imminent either 7 days or 27 days. And so this was also mentioned in Iran. Iran said 7 days that could be war is imminent or as long as 3 weeks. Syria is even saying that what they're being told is war is imminent within the next 3 weeks. It seems, William, and it's not just them, it's Ukraine has said it, North Korea has said it, Russia has said it, China said it. We have all of these countries talking the 7/27 or the next few weeks for war. Now, and one would be one or two I'd be saying, yeah, okay. But it's starting to be mentioned in all of these countries that are fixing to be at war. Now, the only one that didn't say it was Israel. Israel's not saying it. We're not saying it. UK's not saying it. Neither is Germany or NATO. It's just these, it seems they said that this phrase came out of the BRICS meeting.
So there's a number of things going on. We're getting to in the countries near Israel, we're getting near fighting season. Meaning, in the heat of the summer, they don't like to fight. They'd rather fight in the fall.
And
spring,
all the Ramadan or all their religious I don't want to say holidays.
In the spring.
Is it? Well, I thought there was one close to Christmas, though. I could be wrong.
I believe that's Judaism.
Okay.
They have.
Oops.
Yeah, they have where they all have to fast near Christmas, I believe. I'm not a scholar on Islam in any way.
I'm not either, so I couldn't tell you. But you mentioned something about this could be because the election and the fear
if you're Islamic out there and listening to us, get hold of Elly and give her the load on
these
your
holidays
religion and when your holidays and whatnot are, so we can understand the fighting seasons. There's another thing that's going on too, is in the rules-based order, all right, the current order at the UN, you have to announce you're going to war before you go to war. You have to have a declaration of war first so that there's an opportunity to talk before war breaks out for the last-ditch type thing.
But
if
would Iran actually go to the UN and say, you know what, we're going to attack Israel and blow them out of the water? Would Iran?
Well, they still have neighbors. Okay, Iran still has neighbors, and it might offend the neighbors if they don't announce it, right? So we don't know exactly what Iran. It depends on what they see as their best self-interest. So everybody's that has a border dispute is going to go and say this at the same time. Now let's talk about what's going on in China. Evergrande has lost 80% of its stock, and it's the biggest real estate company in China. All right, that's big news. The other big news in China is they've had massive flooding in the last month, and the people are upset that the CCP hasn't reacted and helped them quick enough. Now, when you have a captured population, right, that's what a communist country is. If something happens, it is the government's responsibility to come and help. There are no religions, right? So religions can't come in and help. People can't move around the country freely. So, and if you've got a major part of the population that has currently been underwater from flooding, right? So how do you make that political unrest within your country go away? Well, war's away. And we've seen in the past countries that are just about to go into economic failure, the only way to rally the people once the people are angry is to go into a war suddenly.
Yeah.
Then they'll rally around the leadership.
Now, the other thing that me and you talked about was the microchips, because we are getting that big plant here, and they're saying that it could be 50-50 between what China puts out and what we put out. And if they feel like they're going to lose production. And so that's why one of the reasons why they said the 727 was they might need to go in soon to grab the market on the microchips before we actually get going in the United States. And also, you mentioned the election.
There's a number of chip makers, right? And I believe the ARM chips for like micro miniature computers, handheld. We're talking about a handheld motherboard, right? And the type of motherboards that go in your cell phone. These are chips that are made predominantly in China. If you go to the high-end chips of these workstations, servers, and whatnot, those are made in Taiwan and some in Korea and Japan.
Okay.
So if those lower-level chips are suddenly being made in the United States, now remember, when you make chips, you have to start on the more crude chips before you go to the fine nanotechnology. You start out with microtechnology and then you stomp forward. The reason for that is you can't make machines fine enough the first generation. It takes 3 or 4 generations of machines making better machines, making better machines. Okay? People don't realize just the lathes and the mills, and they have to get so fine, and just being able to make it the same we make transmission parts with for our automobiles is nothing like what it takes to make microchips. They have to be perfect in almost every way. They have to have perfect metallurgy. They have to have perfect crystalline structure in the metal. It has to be perfectly balanced. It has to be, in so many ways, it's almost an impossible feat. That's why these chip plants cost on the order of billions of dollars, $6 billion just to get into creating the crude chips. So, and I don't think people realize that these wafers, right? This is a big wafer these chips are cut out of, has to be grown. It has to be in a rarefied atmosphere with certain chemicals under a certain vacuum with certain heat, and this crystalline structure has to be grown on a plate. And all these things have to happen, and not everybody, you can't just take somebody off the street and make this work. It takes physicists. It doesn't take just engineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time. So if China starts feeling it's losing some of that production, or that there's a glut of those chips suddenly on the market and they can't sell what they're making at a profit, of course they're going to be upset. But on the other hand, the United States shouldn't be having our drugs and chips that are required for warfare being made externally.
Yeah.
Now, I can see us exporting half our military chip making to somebody like Taiwan or Korea or Japan. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to have 50% in-house in case things go south.
Yeah. Or more.
And at least have a surge capacity beyond what they're currently manufacturing. I don't care if they manufacture it or not, and just use part of their capacity, but they need to have the capacity for surge capacity in case, oh my God, happens, right? So I think our pharmaceuticals, at least for our heart medication and for our anesthesia and for our antibiotics, need to be made in the country. We can't have our enemies making our pharmaceuticals. So anyway, that's my opinion, and that's where Congress is heading. They're not there right now, but they're heading in that direction. They've decided that they want to go in that direction. So they want to stimulate chip making in the United States, and they want to stimulate pharmaceutical manufacturing in the United States.
Yeah.
Now, we let pharmaceuticals go out to Canada for a while, and then they jumped to India and also to China. Well, we need to get out of the China business, and we can't let, if we get out of pharmaceuticals to China and we let our Canadian brothers to the north manufacture them, we can't let Canada then re-export them to China, right? So all those things are going on at the same time. And India has decided to be part of BRICS. Well, how do you be part of BRICS and have the largest market in the world is in the West, it's not in the East? Now you're going to manufacture stuff in India to stimulate your economy, and yet you want to step away from the dollar and Western currency. I don't know how that happens. So all of that stuff's up in the air right now. And if you want to settle it, one way to make it absolutely concrete, so nobody in the world is under any delusions, is go to war.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but we mentioned on the phone that with the election coming up, there could be a good possibility we'll have someone from the Republican Party as president, and they could be wanting to jump this, like me and you talked about on the phone.
They may be wanting to get, if you have anything you
hurt
want to
and gain control before
on the border,
their
you
enemy
may have
gets
only
in.
16 months to do it, or the United States may intervene.
Yeah.
So there's that going on.
So
yeah,
I think that's why
that,
the whole 7/27 and the 3-week thing. I think, we always talk about flexing of the muscles, and I want to take this as a grain of salt. But when all of them are mentioning within weeks, even Hungary said, if there's boots on the ground, Putin will go to war. Putin is already hitting Ukraine with the biggest round of missiles ever in this war.
Well,
and he's mad.
He's mad. The phase of what they call the October surprise.
Could be. But we have Putin mad.
9/11 happened during this time. Right? This is a time when wars kick off. It's a natural fighting time.
Well, the whole thing is we have Putin mad. We've got Iran ready to strike and ready to attack not only Syria but the United States. Gaza is under attack. Then we have Taiwan. We have North Korea threatening South Korea. Then we have China threatening Taiwan. And all of these, I guess testosterone is what you would say, is I think built up. I don't know. I might get hate mail for that one. Uh, but I think it is. They've we have pushed these countries to their limits, and we always
Well,
said it's a matter of
it's
time.
not necessarily us. It's these countries get pushed to the limit by the economy of the world.
Yeah.
We haven't. I don't think we've done it necessarily. It's just all the countries together in the world economic health is poor. The war hasn't helped it, and all these sanctions has not helped it in Ukraine whatsoever. So we've got all these things happening at the same time, and you can have a convergence.
So I'm going to say it probably isn't going to happen, but I'm going to tell everybody and our viewers that just keep this in mind. Within 3 weeks, maybe a month, there could be action. What about Ukraine? Well, I don't think Putin will go beyond Ukraine. What about Iran maybe hitting Israel? I don't. With the Iron Dome, I see them doing a barrage, but I bet they would do Gaza first and blame Israel for it.
I think we could see Iran becoming hostile in the Persian Gulf. I think we could see Central African countries attacking each other.
Yes, I forgot about Africa.
I think we could see something kick off in the Middle East. The rest.
Well, even India is going after China at full force now, not just this light back and forth. They're saying they're even, because of the map that was shown of China, that India was in China. I think they're going to ramp up.
Mountain fighting. That's mountain fighting, and this is the season for mountain fighting. Just the end of the summer is when you can fight before the big snows come. And the other thing is, if you want to push back on a border, you want to do it you want to get them pushed back just as the snow falls, right? So that they can't really fight back. And so you use the season.
Well, that's what Russia wanted to do, because Ukraine can't fight in the snow. Leverage. That's what Putin did with Ukraine, because they're not very good in the snow. So they'll get them in the winter, and that's coming up. Ice. See, that's the whole thing. All of this is coming up. The winter and fall and the cooler temperatures, and it would be the time of war in 3 to 4 weeks. So it's just something to keep. Folks, I would take it as propaganda, and I'd put it on the shelf and see what happens over the next few weeks. William, do you have anything to add? This has been a great show, I think.
No, I don't have anything right at the moment. But
okay.
I also want folks to have hope that, by this information spilling out, and you'll probably notice what spills out on Elly's show, it starts spilling out into other mediums like Redacted. They listen to us, we listen to them. And other news outlets. We're usually a couple days ahead, and sometimes Redacted gets a scoop on us, gets ahead of us, but we have our ears to the ground, and because we do, you have the information you need to give yourself and your families the best chance of
not the world
having to deal with these issues that these governments throw up for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And don't get caught in the middle. So, yeah, we want you to have the information out there. We're not trying to be United States centric necessarily. I mean, we're Americans, so we love America, right? And so we see America like that. But we're not anti the rest of the world. We just don't want the United States to be attacked any more than any other country wants to be attacked by the United States. So, yeah, we're kind of caught in the middle a little bit, but we want to give the best neutral information we can so that civilian populations can stay out of the way of this stuff. Militaries already know what they're going to do. They're already talking about it long before it happens. They have intelligence services out there to tell them what's coming and what's not. It's civilians that get caught in the middle. And if we can help civilians protect themselves and stay out of the way of these war machines, I think we're doing the world a service, Ellie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope so. And I hope that, we have a lot of people over in the Middle East and other countries that watch us. And they thank me a lot that I get news to them that they can hear. Because it's the people and civilians that their own government's not going to tell them what's going on. And luckily
so almost every country can get internet from the United States, right? But they can't necessarily get internet from other countries. Whereas the United States can get information from almost every country, and even to a degree from inside China and inside North Korea to a little bit. So when people of the world want to hear news, a lot of times they have to come to the United States, right, for our internet services. And they find things like Redacted, and they find things like Elly's program, and I think we're in a way filling maybe part of the role that used to be filled by, remember we used to have a radio program that went to other countries. Yeah. The United States did. And I think
talk radio is disappearing.
Filling that sort of void that hasn't been filled.
William, talk radio AM's gone, but talk radio is disappearing. They don't want you to listen to it on your radio anymore. Levin has even mentioned that one.
Yeah, it's because most people aren't listening to AM anymore. They're going to FM.
Yeah.
I would like to see it so that you can have more than just music on FM.
Yeah.
Because that's right now they pretty much allow talk on AM. That only started in the 80s that they allowed talk like that.
Yeah.
And it's time. And in the 70s is when we started getting FM radio. Well, it's time that FM radio now be allowed to do talk, so that people can listen to it while they're at work, just on the job site, in the airwaves, and hear information. But there's going to be resistance to it because there's a resistance to any information getting out right now.
Yeah.
And they can control television, they can control cable, but when FM and AM get talk, they can't necessarily control what's out there because those are much smaller outlets. And I hope that FM it starts to allow talk. AM is a dying
yeah,
radio.
No, it was just nobody was listening to it anymore except for talk. They didn't have very many music stations on AM anymore.
Well, radio space, people would rather use it for other communications right now.
Yeah.
And if it's a dying spectrum, they'd rather eat that spectrum up because that's closer to HF. And HF is long-range communications. And so there's a lot of people who would like to get hold of long-range communications. Anything that's down in the megahertz region gives you, if you have a powerful enough transmitter, you can transmit worldwide. So that's an important spectrum to a lot of nations. It allows them to put out propaganda to their neighbors, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not line of sight. It uses skip off the ionosphere. So, yeah, I think that AM is going to be dead, and I think that the Federal Communications Commission should start allowing it on FM and allow more stations on FM. But these spectrums are only so large. and they may start requiring us to do like trunk communications, like the police use and the county and states use what's called trunk communications. They may require us to go to a new type of radio so they can trunk FM, so they can get a broader spectrum on a smaller wavelength. And we may have to buy new upgraded FM radios for our cars and for our homes. But that's not a big deal. If we get all the extra communications with it, I would be willing to pay, a couple $100 to be able to get radio and listen to, a Rush Limbaugh when I'm driving down the road going on a trip someplace.
Okay, William, that is it for tonight. And we thank everyone for watching, and subscribe and ring the bell so you could be notified when our shows are on, and the like button with the thumbs up so that you can see us more often on your YouTube. That's what that thumbs up for. And also, it helps Facebook keep track of my popularity. So they'll work with me a little bit more, and I get more kudos. Maybe they'll send me some cookies. Yes.
I think that as the military realizes that we're helping keep civilians safe, and also if they have to go and exercise their military power, they don't have to involve as many civilians, right?
Yeah.
That this type of radio program may be protected to a degree, because in one way we're doing a service, and another way we're an irritation. So if our service is greater than our irritation, we'll probably continue to be able to do our show. If not, they may come after us.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like we're kind of like sweet and sour, I guess. A little bit good, a little bit bad, and they don't know if they like our taste or not. All right. Okay, William, we thank you for co-hosting, and we thank everyone for watching. And, William always says, fill the churches. I wanted to say it early because it's Wednesday. There's always sometimes in churches have Wednesday services. Well, go try one out tonight. If not, then fill the churches on Sundays. So with that, subscribe and hit the like button and share us. Share us all over. And
thanks, Elly, for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. And for me and William, God bless y'all.